you very much. I'm just surprised that you're all of them dispersed around, so it feels like I'm alone here. I would propose to come closer, because you will see quite many numbers here, so you have to see them. First, why I'm saying biorefinery, biotech, and buzzword. Biotech is a buzzword in those days. It's actually very simple. We encounter biotech in our everyday lives. We drink beer, it is a biotech product. We consume medicine, medicaments, it's also biotech stuff. So we encounter it in everyday lives. And I'll just want to give a couple of the historical examples, which you might be surprised how biotech became a big industry. Take Ford and Ford T automobile when it was invented. It was actually driven by ethanol, which is a biotech product, not by petrol. We are now used to think that all the cars have to be driven by petrol, but in reality, when Ford T was invented, it was ethanol. Another big thing in the industrial biotechnology happened in the First World War. The majority of explosives were produced based again on a biotech-driven materials. Penicillin, again, the big invention is a biotech material. So we really encounter with many products in the biotech industry. So just let's go back to basics, and I'll go through some similarities between biorefining and oil refining, because those two things are very often mixed, but at the same time they're very similar. So-called carbon cycle. What it means? It means that first we have trees growing, wood, and etc. During millions of years, it has been converted into oil and gas. We humans extract that oil and gas and produce fuels, chemicals, polymers. We consume them. We basically waste CO2 into atmosphere. And thanks to, again, biomass, thanks to trees, this carbon is being captured back into wood, grains, etc. And what we do, we basically do a shortcut from millions of years to 1 year. Basically, we buy wheat, we take the carbon chemically out of the wheat, out of the grain, out of the wood, and we convert that carbon into bio-based products. That's why it is called biorefinery near the oil refinery. If you really look into our plant, it's very much similar in some of the cases, like Mažeikių Nafta, like Pakan Orlen company in Mažeikiai. It's just processing oil. Oil is carbon. We are processing wheat, which is also carbon. So in that sense, we are very much similar. That's why it's called biorefinery. Why was this business actually, it became interesting for us? We'll talk about some background, but this is McKinsey report, a lot of chemical names, but 120 years ago, when the oil was discovered for the commercial reasons, or was started being used for commercial reasons, there was a boom of many chemical inventions. Nylon, polyethylene, polypropylene, and all other chemicals, basic chemicals that we are now used, have been derived, have been invented during 50s, 60s. After the Second World War, basically, the world understood that oil is a resource which will end up in some of the years. And started basically limiting their R&D investments, their inventions. So today, if we can see now, today basically chemical companies are no longer doing any innovations from the oil-based chemicals or oil-based industries. But the next boom started, of course, because of high oil prices historically. Last 15 years we have been experiencing huge jumps in the oil prices, so energy became so expensive that people just started looking for alternatives. Alternatives is the same, chemical component which is carbon, anglis in Lithuanian. So this carbon can be extracted with the biorefining principles from wood, from wheat, from any other, from grass, from many bio-based products. So what is happening now, starting with 2000, we do have a lot of different type polymers which are replacing the chemical-based polymers. And that's the industry where we are in. We are hoping as an industry that during next 100 years we will have the same boom of the various chemicals inventions who will eventually replace the oil-based chemicals. That's why it's kind of fundamentally interesting for us to benefit on this. Importance of this economy. If you really look into the Lithuanian GDP, and if you look into sort of crisis and after crisis period of time, you see that after crisis of 2008, 2009, the Lithuanian GDP was growing by 2% per annum, which is very good compared to European standards, but as long as we had a huge drop during crisis, it's not enough. So, however, bio-based economy, which is wood, forestry industry, food industry, beverage industry, as well as agriculture and forestry, those sectors have been growing much faster, have been growing 23%, and we're outpacing, we're helping Lithuanian economy to drag it out of the crisis. And by the way, those industries, bio-based industries, they make 10-12% of the Lithuanian GDP. So it is a big sector, it's a big driving sector. However, as I will talk a bit later, it's very much still basic sector, low value added, low margin sector, and etc. However, we have a potential. I will go through a couple of slides. It's European Union study on the bio-based economies, or on the future of bio-based economies. It's kind of clearly identified that in the greenish area, we have big potential to further develop. Even if we have a 10% of GDP, we still have a chance of the further development because we have nice big areas and economically viable areas to grow and to cultivate biotech resources, bioresources. At the same time, if you calculate how competitive we are, again, European region, you can clearly see that Lithuania, because of water resources, because of fertile land, is very beneficial for future growth because it's cheap. It's cheap to produce basic commodities. That's why we often see farmers driving very nice Jeep Cherokees and etc. Expensive cars. They are quite rich people in that sense if they are able to produce and utilize those competitive resources. What we as an industry, what we don't do, we produce a lot of farmers produce a lot of wheat. Unfortunately, as an industry, we don't process enough of the final products, and we don't produce enough of final products to export them out of Lithuania. I'll come to that later. And it's actually pretty clear, if you look into, again, European map, the biggest growth in terms of agriculture was, or in terms of cereal manufacturing, was demonstrated in the, again, very green areas. Lithuania is one of them. It just, again, demonstrates that we are very competitive in those areas. Also some sort of fundamental data to give you. First graph, it is how much of wheat is produced per annum in our country. Just back in Soviet times, in Soviet Union, we produced less than 500,000 tons of wheat per year. Today, Amelina is consuming 500,000 tons of wheat alone, just as a company. Currently, this year's crop will be 4 million tons per year, so 8 times bigger growth. Of course, very much driven by European Union structured funding, but if you really look into different industries where European Union put money in as a funding, right? No one sector has been able to generate such growth as agriculture. Even if we don't like and say farmers kind of with a sort of jokey manner, right? However, you are innovative guys, right? You get a lot of structured funding money. Are you able to generate that much of growth? Fortunately, many sectors have not been able to do that. Farmers, the one category, has been able to do that. Now we just have to follow farmers to be able to utilize what they have done. We have 4 million tons of wheat compared to other countries in the world. If you look exportable surplus, so-called ratio, how much you process locally and how much you export. Unfortunately, we are, after Canada and Australia, 2 countries in the middle of nowhere, right? So those countries are commodity producers, they don't have markets nearby, so what they do, they produce grain, wheat, corn, extract oil and gas, and they export commodity resources. Now, Lithuania is in the center of European Union, and European Union is a huge consumer of the finished products, and we don't use this chance. Currently, we are running 67% of exportable surplus of competitive raw material wheat, while, as you can see, European Union is running 20% exportable surplus. So we have a huge competitive advantage against others. We can take that raw material, we can process it locally, using innovations at the same time, produce exportable product, interesting product for the world, for Europe, and export it out of the country, so adding value to the wheat. Again, this is actual sort of demonstration. If you compare German wheat, the same quality, with Lithuanian wheat, historically we are, as a manufacturers, buying 15–20% lower price. So we are fundamentally competitive. We have a very good fundamental resource on top of which we can create value. So just to sum up, what I sort of try to say about Lithuanian business model in the industrial sector, there are not many people from the industries. We are sort of stuck in the middle, as I say. We produce a lot of volume-based products. Take fertilizers, take flour, take milk, dairy products, take oil refinery, take starch as our company. We are sort of in the low-tech sector. We buy competitive raw material, add the value, get 5% EBITDA margin, and basically live on that EBITDA margin. This is not something that we should, as a country, pursue in the future. At the same time, we have a sort of in the biotech sector. Again, we have a top tier. We have Thermo Fisher Scientific, we have Teva Group, we have a lot of medical or as I would say, white biotech type companies, the pharmacy type companies, who have been established because of Lithuanian education, basically, have been very well established in the country. And so we sort of have a very top small volume but a big profitability products on one hand. On another hand, we have a huge volume but low profitability products. And this stuck in the middle issue still exists. Still quite many industrial companies do not invest in R&D to bring the commodity products profitability to the second tier, to sort of mid-level, as I say, in that area, so that you have a pretty sizable volume but the good margins, so that instead of being just a regional player, if you produce cheap product, you cannot export it far away, you have to stay in your region. But if you start earning higher margin, then you basically are able to access China. I know that a lot of governmental people are talking, let's fight for China, let's go to China with Lithuanian dairy products. It's nonsense, it's just impossible. Out of the general logic that the products that we can export to China, they're just too cheap to reach China. There's a New Zealand nearby. New Zealand will always be more competitive. So you better add the value on the product that you produce and export into nearby markets than waste your resources targeting business areas which will not work anyway. That's at least my opinion. Of course, somebody else thinks in a different way. So we are a mid-tech sector. We don't have, at least in the industrial area, we don't have a lot of good examples. Normally, if you break down those sectors into the applications, of course, the top tier is the pharmacy sector. Then you go lower, it's basically nutrition, food nutrition. If you go lower, it's food industry, pasta, flour, cheese, milk products. And then if you go into industrial applications, it's like us, starch, it's a glue for the paper. So that's where we work on. If you go even lower in the low-tech sector, it is a commodity-based. So that is general raw material, grain, export to the flour milling. That's it. Traditional industries, again, traditional, sort of criticizing our industry a bit. We are kind of bad in the innovations for the following reason. If you look in the graph, this is the most risky area. Basically, our science and business in the research stage. If you want to, whatever you found in the laboratory, if you want to implement into your industrial scale, it takes millions of euros, at least with us. When we started our business, we needed to invest minimum probably up to 10 million euros to start understanding what we are doing. So it is extremely risky area in which you basically can easily fall into this death valley. And unfortunately, many companies are afraid to enter into that sector. So our way was a bit different approach. We did not try to invent everything in the world. You don't need it. You basically can kind of, as I say, copyright or actually copy it right. It's a bit like Chinese, right? The main thing is, there's a Chinese saying, one of my customers was telling that, why are you so unhappy that we are copying, right? We are copying only the best, so you should be proud. So it's the same. You need to select what to copy, you need to select the technologies that you want to implement, plus be a bit more efficient than your Western competitors. That's the model we worked on. Now I'll just jump, still have 9 minutes, so I'll just jump a bit on what we do as a Melina. Basically, this is a general map of the industry, of the carbohydrate starch industry in Europe. Raw materials in our industry is maize, corn, wheat and potatoes. So from potatoes you can produce starch, we all know that, but you can produce starch from wheat or corn as well. So in that area we make, as a Melina, as a company, 6% of European market share out of the raw materials. You break down starch and the proteins, like 2 fractions. Protein is the gluten that we produce, we export it worldwide. In the worldwide sector, if our market share in the world is 1% of the worldwide in the gluten segment. When you go to starches, basically from 10 million tons of starches, you produce up to 1,000 products. If you go to supermarket, you take any product from the supermarket shelf, you will find starch there in one or another form. Give an example, toothpaste, right? In the toothpaste, the mint taste is a sorbitol, which is produced from glucose syrup, which is produced from starch, right? Another example, xylitol, which is in a chewing gum, those bluish mint stuff. This xylitol, the same stuff, is produced from starch, essentially. You take the washing powder, Ariel washing powder, you have enzymes, protease, lipase, and other ferments. They are produced using glucose syrup, which is produced from starch. So basically, whatever product you take, starch is in there. At the current moment, we're not so high-tech. We are producing native starches and modified starches. We have 6% in a native starch area in the European market. Starch, as such, is used as a glue. When I came to university in my old days, we did not have the glue for what do you call it? Tapestry, right? So you went to the shop, you bought potato starch, you made with the water, put on the wall, and you glued the tapestry, right? So it's the same function that we do in the paper industry. We deliver our starch, paper industry mixes it with the cellulose, cooks it, and makes a paper. Right? That's the same function in many cases. So modified starches we do as well. It's a kind of paper industry glue, and we produce liquid sugars or glucose syrups. Where it is used, our product groups, native and cationic starch, as I told, is used in food, in beverage industry. If during summertime you want to make beer faster, you just add more sugar or you add more glucose, right? So during summertime, breweries are used to add some extra sugars to enhance the brewing or fermentation process. As I was mentioning, other areas like oil drilling areas is being used. Confectionaries, jellies, Haribo gum consists of probably 90% of glucose and 10% some of other stuff. So there are a variety of areas to develop, as long as you have a first raw material, starch, as a competitive raw material. Just a bit about Melina. We are selling worldwide. Basically, it's worldwide geography is big. We are buying our wheat only locally because, as I mentioned, enough of wheat. We have a main shareholder, French company Rocket. It's a very innovative company. They're behind an invention of the toothpaste, basically. If you remember, in the old days, there was no toothpaste. There was a cleaning powder. So what Rocket did, they invented sorbitol, where they mixed powder with the liquid to make the toothpaste as a paste. Going further, this is a bit of Amelina dynamics. We used to be a flour milling company, Malsena. We are probably still better known as Malsena, as a flour producer, as a pasta, amber pastas producers. But back in 2008, started our project, starch manufacturing project. We sold out our business in flour milling business in 2008, and then we basically were left alone on the starch manufacturing business. And currently our revenues are 150 million euros from zero back in 2006. Our investments during that time were 160 million euros. So it's a huge investment, and that's the nature of the industrial biotech, unfortunately. You cannot even think about starting up without 50 million euros. It's just 50 million euros is basically nothing in our industry. That's why those heavy capital-intensive industries with a lot of risks to be evaluated. A lot of numbers. I am a financial guy, so I love numbers. But in general, we are, compared to other companies in Europe, we are number 2 on the native starches. Only one French company is a bit larger than us. If you look into the segments, into the special segments, like corrugated segment, that's corrugated boards that were used, paper board, paper boxes. So this is our business area. We are 30% in that business area in Europe. So we're pretty well established. If you look into the geography, it's sort of, again, part of the reason why we established in Lithuania. One reason is wheat, competitive raw material. That's excellent to have competitive raw material, but another key component is, of course, to have easy access to the market and no competition around. We have paper industry in Sweden, Finland. We have food industry in Poland and the Baltic states, but at the same time we don't have competitors. Those are competitive plants around Europe, and thanks God, Soviet Union was really good to launch rockets into the sky, but they were not able to produce food, unfortunately. So historically there are no starch manufacturing plants basically in the former Soviet Union. So we were happy to fill up that niche after the breakup of the Soviet Union, and we are basically one of the only plants in that area, which helps us. As I mentioned, just to sum up, 2 minutes, basically fundamental supply chain competitiveness matters in our industry. So you have to have a cheap raw material resource, cheap energy resource, where we are not very good at, but we're trying to improve. You have to be well geographically located, as just I mentioned. And Amelina and Lithuania is well geographically located. That's why we have a booming transport sector. From year to year, you need to have people. Again, that's not, I would say that's not so difficult. If you can attract people to your company, you can have a very good quality people, and that's what even our French colleagues are really admitting. They are very much considering R&D investments, and they're very much considering their moving of R&D activities to our country, which is a good and positive sign. And again, money, governmental support, EU funding, it is not an issue. In reality, if you have a product, and I guess that colleague will confirm, if you have an excellent idea, money, getting funding, getting governmental support, and European structured funding is not a very big issue. At least that's what our experience tells. And I also must say that when we started this business, we started with zero money, essentially. This business was started with very, very limited shareholder capital. So everything is possible if you really try hard. That's it. Thank you very much.
Mindaugas, thank you very much. Questions? We have time for a couple of questions.
Thank you for a nice presentation. Well, obviously, you as a company are one of the best in your section. But today we are talking more about innovations here. as soon as I heard from the very morning. So what will be, or what you suggest, what will be the next big issue on the biotechnological area, or what will be the next big thing that bio could suggest us?
As I was just mentioning, it's very hard, it's very expensive, is to hunt for the next big thing. It may happen so that it will never come. I'm here representing sort of a bit of more traditional type industrial company where we don't talk about next big thing. We basically say, look into the market around us and we look for inefficiencies in that market. We basically, today we can say that citric acid is one of the, or citrinurūkštis or ascorbic acid is one of the components which is not produced in Europe. It has been traditionally sort of moved to China. Now what happened, China, because of their growth, they have commodities very expensive. They are fundamentally no longer competitive. However, all the citric acid is produced in China. So we are not looking for the next big thing. We're just saying currently energy is getting cheaper, the raw material, which is wheat, is very competitive against China, so why not to build the citric acid plant here, right? So to me, next big thing is fighting commodities with China. As simple as that.
Somebody would have said there are two kinds of innovation. One is related to do things better.
That's right, that's our
Another
way.
one is related to doing better things, which is
Different thing, right?
different stuff. Okay, another question. Any other question?
That's okay. Unless you have any, you know.
I have a question because again, you introduced the importance of people. How much people is important for your company?
Yeah. It's everything basically. You need to find those drivers, but again, qualification in the governmental institutions or when discussing with academic people, you very often see that people are stressing the importance of let's say the quality, the education, and etc. That's one thing, but the main component, at least in our experience, was the shining eyes, as I say, right? Do you see this drive in the person, the personality drive? And if you have a personality drive, you can, using current Google technologies, you can really develop a lot. Myself, I'm not a chemist, but in those days, to find out what a citric acid is, or what is the basic components are, is so easy. You cannot really, you don't really even need to go to the to sort of specialized courses. You need to you can use the modern technologies to gather this big cloud of the knowledge. There is a big cloud of the knowledge, and you can find virtually everything. What we do, just to also give an example, some of the smart people, just sitting in the internet and analyzing the patents. And in every patent you can find a loophole. And in every patent you can find out how can you improve your process from the source of the officially available information. In the old days, before internet boom, it was taking ages. In the current days, you can do whatever research you want. Market research, you can do it on the internet with some payment to Reuters a bit, for example. You can do your market analysis and market study without expensive consultants. Scientific research, a lot of the basic stuff which helps you to create the business idea, you can do via internet. Again, you don't need to be a specialist, you just need to have a drive. And that's the kind of people we're looking for.
Curiosity and ambitions.
Yes.